December 31st, 2025, 3:51 a.m. Putin's Valdai compound. The billion-dollar inner fortress currently sits blind, mute, and smoldering beneath the snow. A New Year's greeting of 95 drones just arrived, one that the Kremlin's elite aerial defenses failed to intercept. Secondary radar systems are melted scrap. Command antenna arrays are obliterated. Moscow incinerated $100 million worth of missiles, intercepting 91 of them. Yet the 4 that connected just transformed Earth's most secure location into a billion-dollar humiliation. The invincibility narrative didn't merely fracture. It got outmaneuvered by carbon fiber components and a few algorithm lines. The Dolge-Bordy compound at Valdy represents more than a luxury getaway. It's the symbolic nucleus of Russia's power structure. This is Vladimir Putin's venue for hosting his closest allies and executing decisions that redraw global boundaries. A multi-billion-dollar stronghold concealed within frozen pine forests, defended by Earth's densest aerial defense grid. The timing was calculated. December's final night, mere days before the calendar turned. As high-pressure peace negotiations intensified internationally, Ukraine chose to deliver an impossible-to-ignore New Year's present. Moscow labeled it provocative conduct and rushed to reconsider their diplomatic position. For Kiev, however, terror wasn't the objective. Strategic verification was. They aimed to demonstrate that regardless of fortress expenditure, a sufficiently cunning adversary can penetrate even Russia's narrative defenses. The obstacle was enormous. Valdai's facility is encased in what defense experts term an impregnable shield. S-400 Triumph systems serve as heavy artillery, capable of monitoring 300 objectives across hundreds of miles. Panzer S-1 platforms function as sophisticated automated shotguns, eliminating anything approaching. Beyond that, Kasuka-4 electronic countermeasure systems transform airspace into a digital wasteland where GPS and communication signals cease functioning. Theoretically, anything airborne toward this location should be identified, disrupted, and destroyed before glimpsing a single tree. Ukraine didn't dispatch just several drones. They launched a complex saturation assault of 95 units. This wasn't some random collection of recreational aircraft. It was a 3-tier orchestrated pandemonium. Russia had never witnessed such coordinated chaos involving Beaver FP-1 and Telianisia units. The contest was beginning, and Russia was about to discover their flawless defense contained an expensive vulnerability. 2:15 a.m. The Nogar territory. While the world dreams of upcoming resolutions, a terror unfolds 40 feet above Valdai's snowpack. 95 silhouettes tear through frozen pines at 140 miles per hour. This transcends mere flight. It's a high-velocity game of avoiding ground contact with treetop level. At this elevation, you're not simply evading radar detection. You're genuinely invisible, concealed within geographic dead zones of the terrain. Abruptly, Russian command center silence at Dolge-Bordy shatters. The S-400's Big Bird surveillance system, that $600 million aerial eye, erupts with alerts. 60 priority objectives suddenly materialize on displays. Thanks to Lundberg lens reflectors mounted on those inexpensive Beaver decoys, a plastic drone now projects the radar profile of a complete MiG-29 fighter. To Russian operators, it resembles Ukraine's entire air force deciding to crash Putin's gathering. It's comparable to confusing a fast-moving curveball with an uncontrolled freight train. You react instinctively without thinking. Russia's response arrives immediate and aggressive. They activate Kasuka-4, the electronic warfare heavyweight champion. This vehicle-mounted apparatus begins generating a barrier of high-intensity RF interference designed to transform local GPS and radio frequencies into a digital snowstorm. This represents broadband jamming at maximum brutality. It's like attempting conversation while a jet engine idles in your living space. The Russians feel assured. They observe as 15 decoy drones, stripped of guidance systems for weight reduction, lose navigational capability. They spin uncontrollably, crashing harmlessly into pines. To the S-400 battery control team, the assault seems concluded before beginning. They believe they've terminated the show. That's precisely what Ukrainian strategists intended them to believe. 80 drones remain operational and the genuine threat advances through interference. 20 FB-1 drones just identified the disruption and completed a flawless transition. GPS unavailable? Not problematic. They've converted to visual terminal navigation. Satellite guidance becomes unnecessary. They simply observe trees and waterways and determine, I know my exact position. The SHOCKWAVE resembles someone attempting to blind a predator with a flashlight only to discover the predator possesses infrared vision. With 80 units continuing the engagement, Russia's fortress approaches the realization that no quantity of digital interference can halt an eye seeing through static. The initial defense layer has been circumvented, but the close-range weapons are preparing to engage. 2:45 a.m. The mission's covert phase officially concludes. The 45 surviving beaver decoys just performed a synchronized elevation maneuver, ascending from 40 feet to an exposed 500 feet. Suddenly, Volkai's night sky loses its darkness. The Panzer S-1 units, the Kremlin inner circle shotguns, explode into action. We're discussing twin 30mm automatic cannons discharging 40 rounds each second. The atmosphere suddenly fills with neon green tracer streams weaving a lead barrier through freezing air. It resembles high-tech skeet shooting, except the clay targets fly at 150 miles per hour screaming, "Strike me!" The initial beaver decoy absorbs a direct 30mm round impact. The composite structure doesn't simply fracture. It experiences a substantial thermal reaction, transforming into a brilliant orange fireball illuminating the forest below for miles. Then another follows, and another. Panzer operators swing with maximum force. They transition to their latest weapon, the 57 E6M mini missiles. These represent small, hypervelocity interceptors designed to swarm the swarm. It's a vicious exchange. You witness white-hot missile streaks launching from Panzer platforms, intercepting decoys mid-flight with surgical accuracy. Within merely 90 seconds, 35 additional decoys are eliminated, vaporized into fragments by Russian steel rain. To casual observers, Ukraine appears to be suffering massive losses. Moscow's command center likely celebrates, believing they're achieving perfection. But examine closer. For every $15,000 beaver drone Russians eliminate, they're consuming their restricted supply of ready missiles. Those Panzer platforms only contain 48 mini interceptors. Once exhausted, they require a 15-minute reload. And in drone combat, 15 minutes represents eternity. While the sky fills with booms and flashes from sacrificial decoys, the 10 remaining decoys intentionally disperse, redirecting Russian fire away from primary approach routes. The pitcher throws 100 miles per hour fastballs at phantoms, but he's beginning to labor. He's fixated on the pyrotechnics, completely oblivious that the actual base runners, the 20 FP-1 and 15 Kalinitsia rocket drones, are exploiting the chaos and smoke to slide into position. The Panzer systems are approaching overload conditions. Their processors struggle to prioritize 10 decoys while their sensors suffer blindness from the very fireballs they created. The aerial defense shield still functions, but it's beginning to fail. The shotguns are depleting, and Earth's most protected residence is about to learn that a 95% interception percentage is merely an elaborate way of stating, you missed the critical ones. The pyrotechnics were merely the preliminary act. Now it's time for the closers to take position. 2:50 a.m. The decoy fireworks continue burning skyward, but the actual predators have just entered the critical zone. These are the 20 FP-1 AI cores, this mission's special forces. While Russian SHOCKWAVE operators increase their jamming output to levels that could practically boil coffee at 100 yards, they're about to receive a very costly computer science lesson. The FP-1s disregard your radio interference. They're not listening to anything. Each one represents a self-sufficient autonomous machine processing terrain information with the cold, calculated precision of an NVIDIA-powered supercomputer. As the electronic storm strikes them, the integrated AI smoothly transitions from GPS to visual navigation. It's like a blindfolded batter suddenly receiving bionic perfect vision right as the picture releases. The AI examines through its high-resolution cameras, matching the snowy ridgelines and Valdai river curves against a 3D digital replica stored in memory. Russia's command center enters digital shock. They're yelling into emptiness, generating sufficient RF energy to disrupt every mobile phone from Novgorod to Moscow. Yet, these 20 radar dots aren't hesitating. They are maneuvering through valleys using 3G techniques to conceal their approach. It's like observing a Tesla autopilot navigate a mountain route at 150 mph without lane markers in a snowstorm. This is where the fortress begins cracking, with Panzer units desperately attempting to reload empty platforms. The heavy weapon, the S-400 Triumph, is compelled to intervene. This defines economic madness. The Russians are now deploying $2 million interceptors to eliminate $50,000 drones. It's like employing a gold-plated sledgehammer to kill a hornet. The sky erupts again. The S-400 missiles, massive 25-foot long fire spears, stream off their launch platforms. The explosion is deafening, vibrating the presidential residence's very ground. The FB-1S respond with distributed intelligence. They don't fly linearly. They swarm, they divide. They force the S-400's radar to select victims individually. The mathematics are brutal. From the 20 FB-1 units, 16 are eliminated in a desperate $1 million S-400 steel barrage. Each collision represents a massive kinetic occurrence, lighting the clouds like a secondary sun. To the Kremlin's defenders, it feels victorious. They've eliminated the attack's brain. However, those 16 drones just accomplished something far more dangerous than striking a target. They bankrupted the local S-400 inventory. While Russian operators busy themselves tracking the 16 kills debris, they've lost count. For FB-1 units remain airborne, silent, and invisible, and they've just punctured a hole in the aerial defense shield. And directly behind them, the 15 Paleonitia rocket drones have just ignited their turbo engines. The closers are approaching, moving at 450 miles per hour, and the Russian pitcher just realized he's out of ammunition and his arm is failing. The fortress isn't just leaking anymore. It's wide open for the decisive blow. 2:55 a.m. This is the final inning. Bases are loaded and the Russian pitcher is throwing everything, including his equipment, just to preserve dignity. But don't overlook the phantoms. The 4 surviving FP-1 AI cores remain engaged, and they're playing history's most dangerous follow-the-leader game. While the Paleonitas are the loud screaming diversions, the FP-1S are acting as quarterbacks. Their integrated AI is calculating the S-400's reload sequences in real time, seeking that single millisecond gap in the fortress barriers. Russian defenders are fighting for their reputation, the impenetrable shield's legacy. S-400 crews are frantically overriding safety measures to engage targets moving too rapidly for standard tracking. Panzer automatic cannons are glowing crimson hot, generating a desperate 30mm lead curtain into the sky. It resembles a high-tech laser display from the underworld. In this final frantic minute, the Russians swing with everything they possess. They manage to eliminate 11 of the Paleonitias and finally track the 4 remaining FP-1 AI units, vaporizing them in a series of blinding thermal explosions. Russia's command center erupts in celebration. 91 neutralized, target is secure. We got the brains. They were so occupied celebrating the victory that they didn't observe the ball already clearing the outfield fence. Those 4 FP-1S didn't perish for nothing. They were the ultimate diversions. In their final moments, they concealed the 4 remaining Paleonists, directing them into the radar-blind zones created by the very explosions of their fallen companions. The Russians eliminated 91 out of 95, a perfect score theoretically, but in strategic strike reality, theory doesn't matter. The 4 Paleonas that penetrate are now in their terminal descent, aimed with surgical precision. The initial 2 Paleonas strike the secondary gravestone radar and the primary command antennas. There's no massive detonation, just a precise kinetic strike that transforms $50 million of sensitive electronics into high-tech scrap. Instantly, the billion-dollar fortress is silenced. The local aerial defense network just lost its hearing and its voice. The 3rd Paleonitia contacts the auxiliary EW station. The interference ceases. The electronic snowstorm that had been blinding the region vanishes, leaving a deafening silence in the airwaves. Ukraine just disconnected Russia's jamming umbrella's light source. The 4th and final Paleonitia strikes the backup electrical system. A substantial thermal reaction ripples through the generator array, and for a few long heart-stopping moments, the lights across the entire Dogir Bari facility flicker and extinguish. It wasn't a knockout strike that demolished the building. Ukraine was playing a far smarter contest. They didn't want to incinerate the house. They wanted to remove the hat of Russia's most protected individual. Moscow can boast about a 95% interception percentage all they desire, but those 4 precise hits just prove that the inner sanctum is currently blind, silent, and powerless in the Russian winter. The fortress still stands, but its invincibility myth just received a 450 miles per hour reality check. So, the smoke is dissipating over the Valdai forest, and this New Year's gifts mathematics are starting to crystallize. Theoretically, Moscow is broadcasting from the rooftops that it eliminated 91 out of 95 drones. In any alternative reality, a 95% success percentage earns you a trophy. However, in the high-stakes strategic strike world, that 4% failure represents total system collapse. First, the direct military consequence. By disabling the secondary Greystone radar and those command antennas, Ukraine didn't just break some expensive equipment. They effectively silenced the residents. To achieve that 91 drone interception, Russia had to incinerate millions of dollars in S-400 anti-tanker missiles. This creates what we term a strategic predicament. Every S-400 battery Moscow withdraws from the front lines to protect a presidential retreat creates a new vulnerability in the defense of its occupied territories. Ukraine just forced its opponent to choose between protecting the inner sanctum and protecting the battlefield. It's a classic pressure play, and there are no simple solutions. But the genuine victory here is psychological. This strike demolished the invincibility narrative. For years, the Kremlin has told the world that its VIP locations are encased in an impenetrable technology shield. Those 4 precise hits just prove that a billion-dollar fortress can be outmaneuvered by a pile of carbon fiber and some clever AI algorithms. The hat has been removed, the myth is fractured, and the entire Russian negotiating position just got significantly more complicated. Now, I want to hear from you. If you were commanding that Russian aerial defense unit, how would you even begin to halt a swarm that doesn't require GPS and conceals in the treetops? Would you withdraw more S-400s from the front, or just hope the next gift isn't aimed at something larger? Let me know your tactical perspective in the comments below. And if you want to see the deep dive into the Paleonia rocket drone, the closer that's currently making Russian engineers lose sleep, stay tuned for our next update. Bye for now.